Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to BookTube at War. This is an event that was thought up by a viewer, DDB, and made into a BookTube event by Michael K. Vaughan, who assembled a whole bunch of other BookTubers to talk about military literature in the month of July. Fiction, nonfiction, poetry. I haven't had anyone really go out on a branch with poetry. Maybe I will in the remainder of July. Also memoir, or wars that haven't happened yet, fantasy or science fiction. I did one of those already. I might do another one. All throughout the month of July. And I am approaching this the way I approach a lot of other BookTube events. I'm sort of spinning the wheel for my night's reading. I make a pile of books to read at night, and I've been adding BookTube event books to that pile. And last time I did that, the result was a little disappointing. I went from the Battle Cruiser, a novel by Douglas Riemann. I went from that to Dauntless, on the surface a seemingly similar novel by Alan Evans. One set in World War II, one set in World War I, but both of them seemingly very specific to a ship. In one case a battle cruiser, in the other case a light cruiser. And the Alan Evans book certainly I liked, but it seemed to me to be far more straightforward, far more tech-oriented and by the numbers. It didn't seem to me to have much of the human resonance in Battlecruiser. In Battlecruiser, I might be in the minority here for readers, but I honestly thought that the naval adventure stuff in Battlecruisers was very secondary. It isn't at all the element, the plot thread that I remember most. And I thought, when I was done with those two side by side, I thought, okay, well, I'm feeling the pull anyway to go to nonfiction, of course, when it comes to reading military literature or any other kind of literature. My primary yen is nonfiction, but I was feeling the urge to do that anyway, but I thought, well, that's not very fair. That's not very fair to do. I mean, it's not fair to Alan Evans, or maybe you're being unfair in the other direction to Douglas Riemann. You read a Douglas Riemann novel, sort of men's adventure novel that you really liked, really thought it had depth to it that you weren't expecting. Except to the extent that I was expecting it, because I'm familiar with Douglas Riemann a little. And then you read another book very similar in its rhetorical aims that wasn't as good. So last night when I was picking my books, when I was spinning the wheel, I thought, well, there are two approaches that you could take to this before you move on to nonfiction for the rest of the month. I probably won't do nonfiction for the whole rest of the month, but I thought there are two approaches that you can take. You can either read another Douglas Riemann book, or you can read another Alan Evans book, and find out, just on the preponderance of two books in a row, which one of them may have been writing an atypical book. And I couldn't really stomach the idea of another Alan Evans. I'm sorry about that. No offense to him. His book was good. So I went back and read another Douglas Riemann. I've got it here on the Kindle Oasis. I read Go In and Sink. The Kindle Oasis here is in my hand. It never leaves me. It goes everywhere. It's water resistant, so it can be on the counter when I'm taking a shower. It's durable, so I can slap it down on the nightstand or throw it onto the bed or whatnot. And it has the page turn button, so I'm absolutely loving it. The ergonomics here, I just think, are fantastic. You've got the battery there for the uneven back, so you've got a grip for your hand. But it's not sharp. There are rounded edges everywhere here, so you're not digging into anything. And the power button is really, really tensile, so you're not going to activate it by accident. And that's the only way you're going to do it. You can't make the screen fuss around by hitting any of the other buttons. So anyway, and you don't need a sales pitch on the Kindle Oasis. I read this on the Kindle Oasis, but I want to show it to you on the iPad Mini, so that you have color to look at. Because otherwise, you only have me and the bean to look at. So this is the cover to Go In and Sink. And this is from 20 years ago, maybe more than that. This is the story of Lieutenant Commander Stephen Marshall, who's just bringing he's a submarine captain, and he is just bringing, or commander, he's bringing his submarine into port. He and his crew have been through hell. They've been through a grinder. They've had many, many adventures. They know each other really well, even the bad apples. And Marshall is hoping for a rest, but he's not going to get one. He has another mission, and the British Navy needs a really seasoned crew because it's a very, very dicey mission. And that is to man a captured German U-boat behind enemy lines. And that is the overarching plot here for most of the book. I mean, the final part is not quite so much centered on that, but the novelty, the fun, the tension of that is the main organizing principle here of Go In and Sink, which had a different title in the UK. In the UK, it was His Majesty's U-boat, which more directly gave away the plot. So here we have Marshall and his crew trying to figure out this ship, trying to maintain their incognito disguise behind enemy lines, where they could be seriously mauled or killed easily if their identity were known. And they have all sorts of missions. And I noticed right away that maybe I got a really good Douglas Reman with Battlecruiser. I actually don't know anything about this author. I don't think anyone has ever written his biography. I don't think I've ever read even a biographical sketch of the man, aside from incredible World War II service. He didn't just sit out the war in a Morse code shack. But I don't know anything about his creative process. I don't know anything about the conditions under which any of these books were written. So I have no idea if maybe he considered Battlecruiser to be a different kind of novel. Maybe he was prouder of it than he was, for instance, of this. Because this is very different from Battlecruiser. This was very much more along the lines of Alan Evans. This was straightforward naval and then land-based adventure with a little bit of romance thrown in. And it was tinnier because of that. This is less of a book. I still think that Reman is just a better writer than Alan Evans. I think that's sort of a gap that you really can't get around. And that showed in this book. This was more enjoyable than Dauntless. But it didn't have any of the elements that are still sticking in my memory from Battlecruiser. It didn't have any of those at all. The descriptions of life at sea are poetic. And actually, the descriptions of the action are really, really good as well. I'm not meaning to pan this book at all. I thought it was terrific. But it wasn't at all the same kind of fictional endeavor as Battlecruiser. So I now at least have an answer to my question, at least a provisional answer, which is maybe this is getting Douglas Reman on a bad foot, but I now know that probably it was the gap between Battlecruiser and Dauntless was probably a little bit of an illusion. I was probably being a little bit unfair to Alan Evans. Probably a lot of You Are There, gun specification, nonstop action, World War I or World War II military novels designed for a certain demographic are largely the same. Probably a lot of them are largely the same. You're still not going to be able to hide the writing ability, author to author, but maybe the mean is a little bit closer than what I thought, because this was a lot closer to Dauntless by Alan Evans than it was to Battlecruiser. I really enjoyed it, and it brought back a lot of memories, especially cinematic memories of a movie, a movie from the year 2000, U-571, directed by Jonathan Mostow. And starring Matthew McConaughey and, very briefly, John Bon Jovi and Bill Paxton and Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel does a great job in that movie. Just a fantastic job. U-571 is a very effective movie about an American crew that commandeers a German U-boat, a German submarine. And they don't really so much have adventures. There's only so much you can do in 2 hours. But it has some amazing moments and an incredible ending. So just U-571, if you haven't seen it, and it happens to show up on one of your streaming services, you will be entertained the whole time. You will really enjoy it the whole time. And this reminded me of that, of course, because I'm sure that movie was adapted from this, or from real life. This really happened. Both of them maybe were adapted from real life. This reminded me of U-571, so I really need to see if it's on a streaming service of mine and make myself watch it, because I haven't seen it in a long time, and there are some things in it that are quite good. There are some moments in it that are quite good. I mean, you know what you're getting with Matthew McConaughey, right? I would trust that you know what you're getting with Matthew McConaughey. It isn't what he would tell you that you're getting. He would tell you that what you're getting with him is perhaps the greatest actor who's ever lived. Really what you're getting is a fair to middling scenery chewer. And there are plenty of movies where that is all you want. U571 has Harvey Keitel as a very seasoned, subordinate officer. And it also has, I wish I could remember his name, a very good character actor. He's in U571. He's also in Dawn of the Dead. I don't remember his name. He's very good as a sort of, his shtick for a while there in the late 90s and the early 2000s was to play an intelligent guy trapped between action behemoths. that was his role, is that he was a valiant, intelligent guy who's not an action hero. But you're still supposed to think he's noble. You're still supposed to like him. He has a wonderful send-off scene in Dawn of the Dead. And he has some wonderful scenes in U571. I don't want to be unkind here. I don't want to say, well, you all know what I think, right? That movies are often better than the books they're based on. Of course, U571 was not based on Go In and Sync, but it is a better version of this same story. This story derails in its third act rather significantly and proves beyond a shadow of a doubt what you would expect from Douglas Riemann or any of the other action-adventure novelists of the time, which is that he can't write romance at all. He can't even approach it. He doesn't have any idea what he's doing. It amazes me that any of these men were ever married. I have to assume that they could have written that element, man meets woman elements, in their books much better than they did, and chose not to because they were writing it awkward and dumb for what their perception of their audience was like. I have to assume that that's the case in all of them. Remember, for June on the Range, when we were encountering one fingers on chalkboard awkward love scene after another, you're thinking, okay, well, it's not possible that all of these actors were miserable, tense, introverted incels. It can't be. Most of them were married many times. It has to be that they think their audience wants those scenes to read like that. And that I was reminded of that in this book. That part of this book does not work at all, I don't think. But a lot of this does. I really enjoyed it. And it sort of evens the keel a little. It sort of evened things out for me so that now I feel calm. I feel that I've done a fair job with this little dally into fiction. Now I can move on to nonfiction. I don't know if nonfiction will affect upload schedule. Quite a bit of military nonfiction is quite long and quite detailed. And if I'm going to reread something or even read something for the first time, but I don't think I have anything on my docket that fits BookTube at War that's new. I don't think I do. Certainly not anything that's long. I don't think. I'll have to check, but I don't think. For late July or early August, I think my deck is clear for those. But that would mean rereading. And a lot of the books are big. They will be too big for me to do on my night's roundup unless that's all I did. And that's not what the night's reading is for. The night's reading is to knock cans off a fence post. It's not to sink into my 10th reread of The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. So I'm going to have to figure out what to do about that. I guess if I didn't make a video every day, I would give my co-host a chance to catch up. Not that this is a race, but might give you a breather too. We'll see. We'll see what I do tonight. There'll be a spin of the wheel. There'll be me wandering around while Frida looks at me from the couch wondering, you doing that book thing again? What are you doing? Come over here and fuss with me. I'll do that and we'll see what we encounter. But I've answered my question about Douglas Riemann and Alan Evans. I have answered, Frida yoga on the couch. Goodness gracious, how can that be comfortable? I've answered my question just a bit about that for now, so I'll return to it before the end of the month. Fiction, I mean. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.